Beneath the vast desert sky, where the air cools to a whisper and the sands lie still as an ocean of silence, there stands a shape older than kingdoms, older than empires, older perhaps than memory itself. The Great Pyramid rises like a frozen hymn, its worn stones bathed in silver by the moon. From a distance it seems eternal, unyielding, a mountain made by human hands. But those who linger in its shadow feel something more, a breath, a presence, a waiting. Whispers tell us that within this mountain of stone there lies a secret, a chamber untouched by centuries, hidden deep within its heart. Some call it myth, some call it forbidden. Yet night after night, as starlight spills across its limestone skin, the question lingers like an echo. What lies beneath, still sealed in silence? Let us not rush toward answers. Let us walk softly, as though guided not by light but by the hush of the desert night. Imagine for a moment that we are invited to descend, not as thieves or seekers of treasure, but as pilgrims moving with reverence into the mystery of stone. It begins at the base, where the air tastes of dust and time. A passage carved long ago leads downward, narrow and sloping, as if designed to remind all who enter of their smallness. The walls breathe coolness. The ceiling seems to press closer with each step. There is no sound but the soft scrape of sand beneath the feet and the hollow echo of breath. It is said that every stone of the pyramid was placed with intention. If so, then these corridors are not mere tunnels, but pathways of meaning. Each turn, each angle was measured not only in geometry, but in silence. We move slowly, listening, as if the stone itself might speak if only we were patient enough to hear. Ancient texts, now faded, hint at hidden rooms, spaces sealed from the world above. Some believe they were built to protect sacred objects, others that they were chambers for ritual, places where the soul was prepared for eternity. Yet the deeper mystery is not what they held, but why they were hidden. For what is a sealed room if not a message left for the future? What is a hidden chamber, if not a whisper meant to outlast centuries? Pause here. Place your hand upon the wall in imagination. Feel the cold surface of granite marked by unseen labor. Thousands of hands once touched these stones. They carried them, shaped them, set them in place. Their breath once filled these passages. Their voices once rang with chants or silence as they worked beneath the desert sun. It is said that stone remembers, that vibrations linger. If so, perhaps the walls themselves carry the echo of those hands, the rhythm of tools striking rock, the murmur of prayers spoken in languages long forgotten. The hollow stillness around us feels alive, as though it has been listening for thousands of years, waiting for footsteps to return. We cannot know their names, those who built and carved, those who sealed and left. But in this silence we can feel their presence, not as ghosts but as echoes woven into the very dust. Some believe the hidden chambers were more than rooms. They say they were maps, inscribed not on papyrus or parchment but in shadow and geometry. The Great Pyramid, after all, does not stand alone. It is aligned with the stars, its edges tracing the movements of the heavens. Orion rises above it. Sirius watches from the horizon. Could the sealed chamber be a reflection of the night sky, a model of constellations, a mirror of the cosmos? Some whisper that priests once descended here, not to bury kings but to commune with eternity, to enter a chamber that was itself a star-marked sanctuary. If walls could speak, what would they say? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps they would only hum with quiet alignment, stone and starlight locked in a silent embrace. As we descend further into imagination, the air grows stiller, heavier. We arrive at a door, not of wood, not of iron, but of stone itself. It is sealed. No chisel has broken it, no hand has opened it. What lies beyond? Is it treasure, scrolls inscribed with forbidden knowledge? Or is it emptiness, left deliberately to remind us that some chambers are not meant to hold, but to teach us the weight of absence? The sealed threshold becomes a mirror. It reflects not what lies behind, but what lies within us. Our yearning, our curiosity, our hunger for what is hidden. To stand before it is to stand before mystery itself, a wall of silence that asks, do you need to know or can you simply be? Some say the true chamber is not beneath the pyramid, but within the human spirit. That the sealed door is symbolic, a reminder that each of us carries a hidden room untouched by time, waiting to be entered. This inner chamber is not filled with gold, nor guarded by curses. It is filled with silence, with memory, with the fragments of all that has passed through us, voices, dreams, sorrows, and stars. Perhaps the Great Pyramid is a reflection of that inner architecture, a vast, enduring monument pointing us back toward ourselves. Perhaps what we seek beneath its stones is already within, veiled but waiting. Now let us step back. Let us rise slowly, retracing the corridor upward, the cool air soft against the skin. Above, the desert night still waits, vast and unbroken. The stars shimmer like scattered embers. The moon drapes its silver across the stones. The pyramid stands silent, as it always has. Its secrets remain sealed, its chambers hidden. And yet in the quiet of this night something has shifted. Not in the stone, but in the heart that listened. It is said that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only to be carried. That their purpose is not revelation, but wonder. And so we return to the starlight. The pyramid watches as it has watched for ages, patient and unmoved. The hidden chamber, whether it exists or not, lingers as a question, a presence in absence, a whisper in silence. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps its truth is not in discovery, but in the longing it awakens. Listen now to the desert wind, to the echo of stone, to the hush of the stars. The chamber beneath the starlight remains closed, but its silence opens something within us. We are left not with answers, but with the soft weight of wonder. And in that wonder we drift slowly into stillness, into dream. Beneath the velvet hush of the desert night a river glides. It does not roar nor does it rush. It moves with the still patience of eternity, as if it knows its journey has no end. This is the Nile, a ribbon of silver unfurling beneath the gaze of stars, ancient even before the first stone was set upon another. It is said that no civilization can rise without water, but the Nile was more than sustenance. To those who lived by its banks it was a god, a spirit, a pulse of the earth itself. And in its quiet current, whispers tell us it carried more than fish or silt or reeds. It carried memory. It carried mystery. It carried stone. On nights such as this, when moonlight drapes the river's skin like a veil of liquid glass, one may imagine the countless blocks of limestone and granite borne upon its surface. They drifted slowly, silently, like darkened islands, each one a voyager, each one a breath of empire in solid form. The river became a road, invisible but eternal, leading from quarries to eternity, and the stones, like pilgrims, floated upon its body as though carried by the hand of the earth itself. Whispers tell us that the Nile was more than a river of water. It was a river of memory. Each ripple was a syllable, each bend a phrase, each flood a verse in an endless hymn to time. For thousands of years it wound its way across the desert, carving not only earth but consciousness. Priests wrapped in linen and silence believed its waters mirrored the veins of the world, the sacred lifeblood of creation itself. They spoke of how the Nile was not bound to soil but to stars, that its flood came when Sirius, the dog star, rose in the sky, marking the moment when heaven and earth were joined. And so the river became a thread, tying together what was above and what was below. Some said it was the Milky Way's reflection, the celestial river mirrored upon the ground. To stand by its banks at night was to gaze upon eternity twice, once in the sky and once in the water that shimmered with stardust and moonlight. From distant quarries the stones were cut. Granite from Aswan, limestone from Tura, alabaster from quarries whose names now crumble into dust. Each block was a fragment of the earth's bones, torn from bedrock and entrusted to the river's breath. Imagine the scene. Workers guiding rafts made of cedar, the ropes biting into their palms, the torches flickering upon the shore. The blocks towered above them, silent, immense, and yet upon the river they floated, as though weight itself had surrendered to the current. It is said that the Nile was chosen not for its convenience, but for its sanctity. To move stone upon its surface was to consecrate the work, to let the river itself bless each block with its touch. Some whispered that the waters washed away not only sand but spirit, preparing the stones to become more than rock, preparing them to enter the geometry of eternity. But what else did it carry? Whispers tell us that the river was not only a servant of labor, but a keeper of forbidden knowledge. That beneath its surface songs were sung which no ear should hear, chants woven into the rhythm of the tide. The rafts may have borne granite and limestone, but the current bore secrets, passed like offerings from one age to the next. Some mystics said that the priests would stand upon the banks at night, whispering prayers into the water. These words would ride the current, dissolving into its endless spiral, carried far downstream, perhaps into eternity. Others believed the river itself was a temple, its tides performing rites beyond human understanding. The current was the hymn, the eddies the incantations, the very movement of water a liturgy of the unseen. Perhaps when the stones floated by moonlight, they carried with them more than weight. Perhaps they absorbed these chants, storing them deep within their grain so that even now, when we press our hand against the side of the Great Pyramid, we might feel the faintest hum, the echo of voices lost, but not gone. On the river's skin the stars gazed down. The stones drifted beneath constellations, mirrored in water, mirrored again in geometry yet to be built. It is said that the builders aligned their monuments not with chance, but with precision so divine, it seemed more dream than design. The Great Pyramid itself rose in harmony with Orion, its passageways pointing to stars like fingers, pointing toward eternity. And so the river, too, became a map. Not of sand or stone, but of reflection. It carried the constellations across its waves, as though the heavens themselves were being ferried downstream. Each stone floating upon its surface was like a planet, a fragment of earth mingling with fragments of sky. To drift upon the Nile was to drift upon infinity. The line between water and air dissolved, and one might not know if they were moving forward in space or upward toward the stars. As the night deepens, the river slows. The oars fall silent. The torches extinguish one by one, leaving only the silver wash of the moon. The stones drift onward, but now they seem less like matter, more like dream. The current becomes soft, unmeasured, like the breathing of a sleeper. We too drift with it. The air carries a scent of lotus, of reeds brushing the banks, of night that has no end. The river no longer feels like a road of water, but a current of spirit. It carries us backward into memory, forward into possibility, inward into silence. Perhaps the Nile was never only a river. Perhaps it was the great passageway of the soul, bearing all things, stone, prayer, memory, silence, toward an unseen horizon. And so we drift endlessly down this sacred current. The stones vanish into distance, swallowed by night. The priests fade into shadow. The chants dissolve into the water's hush. We are left only with the flow, the steady, patient flow. It is said that all rivers end in the sea, but the Nile perhaps never ends. Perhaps it carries its secret still, flowing not into an ocean of salt, but into an ocean of silence. And as we listen now in the quiet of night, we too are carried, not toward answers, but toward a horizon where questions dissolve, where weight becomes light, where memory and wonder meet in silence. Perhaps the river never carried stones at all. Perhaps it carried dreams. Perhaps it carries us still. And in that gentle drifting we close our eyes. The Nile flows on. The stones float forever, and we fall softly into the current of sleep. Beneath the soft breath of dusk, where the desert turns from gold to violet, there lies a stone. At first glance it seems like any other, a block of granite weathered by centuries, quiet in its stillness. Yet if you linger, if you allow your eyes to rest upon its half-lit face, you begin to sense it is not only a stone. It is something more. Its surface bears scars, not of accident but of labor, marks left by chisels and hammers, by hands long vanished, by patience so deep it feels eternal. The edges are sharp, but softened by time, as if the wind itself has been brushing against it for 1,000 years. And in its weight there is more than matter. There is memory. It is said that stone can remember, that every vibration, every touch, every breath that lingers upon it settles within its grain. This solitary block, lying half in shadow, half in fading light, has seen things no eye now living can recall. It has watched the sun rise over empires. It has felt the moon spill silver across its skin. It has been lifted, carried, aligned, and placed not merely as architecture, but as offering. And perhaps even now it remembers the sky. Whispers tell us that each stone of the great monuments was more than material. It was a vessel, chosen with care, aligned with stars, placed in harmony with the heavens. The ancients believed that nothing in creation was without spirit, not even stone, especially not stone. To them, granite was not dead matter, but the crystallized breath of the earth. Within it lay fire, pressure, and the weight of ages. To set such a stone into a monument was to set a piece of eternity into alignment with eternity itself. It was not construction. It was ritual. Some legends murmur that particular stones were placed with cosmic precision, so that their angles pointed to Orion, or their weight resonated with Sirius. To modern eyes, they are mere blocks stacked one upon another. But to those who raised them, each was a star fallen to earth waiting to be returned in meaning. And so the stone we see now is not simply lying upon the desert floor. It is resting, like a priest in meditation, carrying within itself the silent memory of the cosmos. Touch the stone in imagination. Beneath your hand lies not cold granite, but the faint pulse of forgotten lives. It recalls the rhythm of hammers, steady as a heartbeat, falling upon its surface. The sound echoes in silence even now, a music of chisels, of sweat, of breath. The builders, faceless to us, were not faceless to the stone. Their hands pressed against it, their breath warmed its surface, their chants filled the air as they worked beneath the desert sun. It is said that stone absorbs vibration, that the walls of a temple remember the hymns sung within them, that pillars recall the footsteps of those who prayed among them. If that is true, then this stone remembers too. It remembers the chants, the prayers, the silence of exhaustion, the whispered hopes of those who carried it. Perhaps if one were still enough, one could hear it hum. Not with words, but with resonance, a vibration of memory, a trace of all who touched it before. Legends tell us that when the great pyramids and temples were raised, the priests did not look downward at their work, but upward to the heavens. They charted the stars, traced the constellations, and fixed their gaze upon Orion, the eternal hunter, whose belt marked the desert sky. Some believe the very stones were aligned with those stars, set so precisely that their placement mirrored the constellations above. To look upon the pyramid was to look upon the heavens in reflection, a map written not in ink, but in stone. If so, then this solitary block, half lit by dusk, was once part of that map. Perhaps it lay in line with Orion's belt, or beneath the gaze of Sirius when it rose in the east. Perhaps its angle caught the moonlight on a certain night of ritual, channeling its silver glow down into the heart of the monument. It is said that stars leave their marks upon stone, as fire leaves its mark upon ash, invisible to the eye but inscribed in silence. If that is true, then this stone remembers the night when Orion crowned the desert, when the priests raised their arms, when chants rose to meet the stars. We begin with granite, mineral, matter, weight, but slowly as night deepens it becomes something more. The stone is no longer simply rock. It is myth, it is symbol, it is presence. Its silence grows alive like a chamber holding its breath. It seems to watch though it has no eyes. It seems to wait though it has no will. There is a sense that something is stored within it, not treasure, not writing, but something subtler. An impression, a vibration, a memory that is not ours to read. It is said that stones are the bones of the earth, but perhaps they are also the bones of memory, structures that hold what time would otherwise erase. What was spoken, what was sung, what was dreamed, all sealed within. And so as we linger with it, we drift from the physical into the ethereal, from stone into spirit, from silence into story. There is a feeling now that the stone itself is watching us, not in the way of living eyes, but in the way of presence, an awareness that is both patient and unmoving. It does not demand, it does not reveal. It only holds, perhaps it holds stories we will never hear. Perhaps it holds silence that is itself the story. Perhaps like a star, it shines in ways invisible to us, its light reaching not the eyes but the soul. In forgotten corners of the earth, people say stones are witnesses, that they stand long after voices fade, holding the truth of what has passed. This stone, then, is a witness to all that has been, the toil of builders, the prayers of priests, the gaze of stars, the endless drift of time. And yet, in its silence, it gives nothing away. It waits, it holds, it remembers, the night deepens. The sky grows thick with stars, until the desert seems like a mirror of the heavens above. The stone lies still, silvered by moonlight, half in shadow, half in glow. We lean closer, but it offers no answer. We listen, but its voice is not in words. We wait, but its silence is its reply. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood. Perhaps it was never meant to be explained. Perhaps it was placed not to reveal, but to endure. And so we leave it where it lies, a presence in dust, a memory in matter, a silence beneath the stars. The stone that remembers the sky continues to remember, even as we drift away. It holds its secrets quietly, patiently, as it always has, and in its silence we too are drawn into stillness, into wonder. into the soft edge of dream. In the hush of twilight, when the desert exhales its heat into the cooling air, there rises the silhouette of a shape too perfect to be chance. The pyramid, ancient, immovable, its sides falling into shadow like the closing of a great celestial book. Beneath the fading sky, it stands not as a monument alone, but as something more elusive, more secret. Imagine stepping closer, past drifting sand, until you are at the base where stone meets earth. There, in the veiled silence, a question hovers like incense. What if this was never a tomb at all? What if it was a map? Not a map to gold or treasure, not a map to chambers filled with jewels, but a map etched in dust and shadow, meant not to guide the body through corridors, but to guide memory itself, to awaken what has been forgotten, to carry us not outward but inward. It is said that within the pyramid, corridors twist like riddles, long halls that lead to chambers with no doors, passages that narrow until they fade into silence. Some who walk these halls with lantern and torch describe them as deliberate confusions, not meant to reveal but to conceal. Perhaps these walls are not walls at all, but words. Perhaps their angles are syllables, their chambers verses, their silence a kind of scripture. The geometry whispers in its own tongue. To step inside is not to explore architecture, but to step into language, a language spoken not with breath but with stone. The pyramid speaks, though its voice is stillness, its tongue shadow, its script geometry. And what does it say? No one can claim to know. But some believe it is less instruction, more invocation. A call not to the eye but to the soul. Let us wander in imagination. The air cool, dry, tinged with dust. A narrow passage stretches ahead, lit only by the quiver of flame. Walls rise close, pressing the air into silence. The torch flickers and shadows bend like ink upon stone. Each corner feels intentional, each turning deliberate, as if the builders meant not to guide but to unsettle. To move the traveler away from ordinary thought, deeper into the strange, the unfamiliar, the sacred. The torchlight trembles against carvings half-worn, against cracks that might be letters, against surfaces too smooth to be accident. And in that dim glow the question deepens, are these passages a maze? Or are they a map, drawn not with ink but with absence and silence? It is said that some who entered felt the pyramid itself breathing, that its chambers seemed to pulse with unseen rhythm, as if the walls were remembering something. As if the stone itself held memory like parchment holds ink. Whispers tell us of scrolls once sealed within chambers, scrolls of knowledge forbidden, hidden by priests who feared their power. The tales drift like dust, fragile, uncertain, unprovable, and yet they linger. Some imagine papyrus rolled tight, bound with cords, placed within niches where no light could touch them, scripts written in careful hand, detailing the birth of stars, the secrets of breath, the patterns of the earth. Others believe no scrolls ever existed, that the pyramid itself was the scroll, that its structure, its lines, its impossible precision was already the writing. Whether or not the scrolls were real, the dream of them lives on. We feel them in the air of the corridors, in the silence of the chambers. Their absence is as palpable as their presence might have been. Perhaps the pyramid holds no hidden text, because it is the text. Perhaps its walls do not hide scripture, but are scripture. A scripture not meant to be read, but to be felt, in the body, in the breath, in the slow quiet of the heart. Some scholars searched for logic in the pyramid, measurements, angles, alignments. They found numbers that echoed celestial patterns, distances that reflected the heavens, proportions that seemed almost impossible. Yet beyond these calculations lies another truth, that the structure is not merely mathematics, but memory, that each angle is not only geometry, but remembrance of the stars, that each chamber is not only space, but a verse of silence. It is said that the ancients believed stone could store vibration, that architecture could echo with ritual. If so, then the pyramid is more than monument. It is a memory palace for the earth itself, a place where dust remembers the footsteps of priests, where shadows recall the path of the moon, where silence preserves chants no longer sung. To walk its corridors is to walk through a memory not your own, yet somehow familiar. As if the walls are whispering, you have been here before, though not in this lifetime. And so the dust becomes the map. Not the carved reliefs, not the lost inscriptions, but the dust itself, settling, shifting, rising with each step. It curls in torchlight like smoke, as though carrying invisible letters. It clings to the skin, as though marking the traveler with its own script. Dust, the residue of centuries, the ashes of forgotten fires, the breath of those who labored and prayed. It is said dust is memory broken down. Each grain a fragment of something once whole. Each particle an echo of a stone, a voice, a star. And in its endless drift, it forms the only map we are meant to follow, a map not of direction but of dissolution. For dust leads not to treasure, but to silence. Not outward, but inward, into the chambers of the self where memory fades and yet awakens. Some maps are meant to guide bodies through landscapes. This one is different. It does not lead to oases or to gold or to secret chambers. It leads only inward. It is a map of absence, drawn in silence, written in shadow. It invites the traveler to lose their way, to be misled, to wander until the boundary between body and spirit dissolves. It is said that such maps awaken what sleeps within us, that to walk their lines is to walk the lines of one's own soul. To follow the dust is to follow memory. To stand in the silence is to listen to what was always waiting. And perhaps that is the hidden truth, that the pyramid was never built to hold a king, nor to protect treasure, but to awaken, to stir the unseen, to mirror the sky above and the soul within. The torch burns low, the walls grow dim, the air thickens with shadow and dust. The corridors fold into one another until they become dream. We do not emerge with answers. We do not find scrolls, nor jewels, nor final truth. Instead, we are left with silence, a silence deeper than before, a silence that feels alive. Perhaps the pyramid was never meant to be solved. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood. Perhaps it was only meant to be entered, to be felt, to be remembered in dream, and so we leave, carrying nothing but wonder. The desert night presses close. The stars mark their places above, eternal and unmoving. The pyramid stands in shadow, vast and inscrutable, and somewhere within the dust still shifts. The silence still waits. The map still lies drawn, not to guide the feet, but to guide the spirit. A map of dust and shadow, leading only into inner stillness where memory fades, where silence endures, where the soul listens. In the stillness before sunrise, the desert waits. The sand lies cold beneath the weight of night, and the horizon holds its breath. Then softly a faint band of light begins to rise, pale, hesitant, almost translucent. The world awakens not with clamor, but with silence, broken only by the murmur of wind over stone, and in that silence one may imagine another kind of sound, long since faded, yet never truly gone, the breath of those who built, the breath of thousands, faceless now, whose exhalations rose with the dawn, weaving themselves into the body of the pyramid, into the desert air, into the fabric of eternity. It is said that when the first stone was laid, a hush fell upon the land. Men stood in quiet rows, hands calloused, backs bowed, eyes lifted toward a task too great to name. Their breath hung in the air, not frantic, not broken, but measured, deliberate, almost ceremonial. Imagine them before the heat rose, gathering with tools and ropes, their voices stilled, their lungs drawing in the cool desert air, releasing it with the rhythm of labor. Each breath rose like incense, invisible offerings carried upward by the wind. They may not have spoken of eternity, they may not have named the stars, and yet their breath knew. Their breath understood in ways their tongues perhaps could not. It poured into the silence of stone and remained, an unseen testimony. Some would call it toil, others burden. Yet perhaps it was more than that. Perhaps each motion was ritual, each heave of stone a vow whispered into creation, a block of granite, impossibly heavy, raised by ropes and human will. The sound of strained muscles, the murmur of command, the soft thud of stone meeting stone, and above it all only breath, breath released like prayer, breath binding one body to another, breath uniting the multitude into a single living rhythm. It is said that when people move together, their breaths align. The pulse of lungs becomes one. The rhythm of work merges with the rhythm of the heart. Perhaps this was so with the builders, a living choir, voiceless yet harmonious, their exhalations echoing into chambers not yet complete. And so the pyramid rose, not merely of stone, but of breath. Each layer infused with the unseen, each passageway filled not only with silence, but with the lingering presence of life force given freely, given endlessly. Did they know what they built? Did their breath carry awareness of the mystery, or were they only following orders of kings and priests, their understanding as veiled as the chambers they carved? Some believe they were guided by knowledge lost, that within their breath was an ancient memory, a wisdom carried not in words but in rhythm. That to lift, to chant, to breathe was itself a teaching, an unspoken scripture passed from elder to apprentice. Others whisper they did not know. That they labored in blindness, shaping eternity without sight of its meaning. And yet does it matter? For whether or not they understood, their breath remained. Their breath entered the walls, seeped into the cracks, settled in the dust. Knowledge forgotten, but presence eternal. It is said in many traditions that breath is more than air. Breath is life, spirit, the unseen thread binding body to soul. To breathe is to exist. To cease breathing is to vanish. If this is so, then the pyramid is alive, not in flesh but in spirit. For within its passages lie centuries of breath, countless exhalations suspended in the silence. Breath that once belonged to men now nameless, men whose hearts beat for a time and were stilled, but whose final offering was carried inward, sealed within stone. Imagine walking the narrow corridors today. The air is heavy, still thick with centuries, and yet in the quiet you might sense something more. Not sound, not wind, but presence. The faint echo of inhalations and exhalations layered over one another, a choir without voice, still resonant, still alive. Beneath the silence, dust drifts. It settles upon the stone, it stirs beneath footsteps, it rises like smoke when touched. But this dust is not empty, it is infused with memory. It remembers. Every grain carries fragments of breath once given. The warmth of lungs now cooled, the sighs of effort, the quiet groans of strain. Dust is the residue of time, the ash of existence, and within it lingers the exhalation of builders, rising once more with each disturbance, whispering again into the air. To stand in that dust is to stand among their breaths. To breathe it in is to commune with them, to share in the unseen ritual that has not yet ended, for their breath has not vanished. It remains veiled, folded into the silence, waiting. The pyramid, then, is not only a vessel of stone. It is a vessel of breath, a container for life force, invisible yet enduring. Each block remembers the hands that touched it, the lungs that strained to move it. Each chamber is not empty but filled with exhalations offered without knowing, offered without choice, yet offered all the same. Some believe this was deliberate, that the pyramid was designed not merely to preserve the body of a king, but to preserve the collective breath of those who built it. That it is less tomb, more cathedral of air, a sacred container where the unseen offering of humanity still dwells. Close your eyes. Listen. Beneath the silence, beneath the stone, there is an echo. Not loud, not clear, but soft, like the memory of a song. It is the sound of breath layered over centuries, rising and falling, expanding and contracting. A choir without words, without music, yet holy in its persistence. The builders still breathe through the walls. They still exhale through the dust. Their rhythm lingers, faint yet endless. Perhaps this is the true mystery of the pyramid, not its chambers, nor its geometry, nor its hidden passages, but the invisible choir that fills it. A breath still suspended in silence, like a chant we can almost hear if only we listen long enough. The sun has risen now. The desert warms. The pyramid glows with light, its shadow long and sharp against the sand. Yet within it remains cool, hushed, filled not with absence but with breath unseen. The builders are gone. Their names forgotten, their faces erased, their stories unrecorded. And yet they remain. They remain in the silence, in the dust, in the walls that still hold their exhalations. Perhaps breath never vanishes. Perhaps it only transforms. Perhaps every sigh, every chant, every exhalation becomes part of the air we inherit, part of the silence we enter. And so we end not with conclusion, but with pause, with a silence that is not empty but full, with an invisible choir waiting within stone. Listen. Beneath the silence there is breath. The breath of the builders, still lingering, still echoing, still alive. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. It begins in silence. A desert silence so vast that it seems to cradle the whole sky. The sands are cool with midnight, and above them the heavens are wide and unbroken, a black ocean seeded with stars, and there upon the horizon rises the outline of the pyramid. Its edges, sharp as though cut by a cosmic blade, carve into the constellations. Stone against starlight, earth meeting eternity. It does not stand as mere monument. It looms as though it were both mountain and mirror, a reflection of the heavens placed upon the earth. Her gate of stone, fashioned not to keep the world out, but to open the world into something greater, a threshold, a bridge, a silent invitation to step beyond the known. Some say it was raised for kings, others whisper it was built for gods, but here, beneath the trembling canopy of Orion and Sirius, it feels like something else, a door between earth and sky. It is said that long ago, under this same sweep of heaven, priests wrapped in robes the color of desert sand lifted their gaze upward. Their garments rustled like whispers carried by the wind. Their voices, low and steady, matched the rhythm of the night itself. They saw the stars not as distant suns, but as sacred companions, living fires whose patterns told stories older than the desert itself. Orion's belt stretched across the sky, 3 lights in perfect procession. Sirius burned bright, a flame of blue-white rising in season with the river's flood. To those who kept watch, this was no accident. It was alignment. It was devotion etched into the sky. And so the pyramid became more than stone. It became geometry in dialogue with the cosmos. Each angle, each side, each corridor, laid not only to serve the body of a ruler, but to echo the architecture of the heavens. The very placement of the structure was a prayer in limestone, a celestial alignment written upon the sands. Imagine standing before it. The desert still, the stars trembling above, the mass of stone pressing against the horizon. It does not open like a palace. It does not welcome like a temple. Instead, it confronts, vast, austere, silent, but within its silence something stirs. Perhaps it is not a house of death, but a ladder of ascent. Not a resting place, but a rising place. Could it be that this structure, so rooted in earth, was meant to guide the soul upward? That each stone, massive and enduring, was laid like a rung upon the air, a stairway not visible to the eye but felt in the spirit. The builders may have known, or they may not. Perhaps only the priests understood. Perhaps only the stars themselves carried the secret. But one wonders, if a soul stood before that gate, under Orion's shining belt, would it feel the pull, not downward, into the grave, but upward, into the sky? There is a hum faint and unspoken within the structure, a geometry that speaks not in words but in silence. The triangle, a shape that points always beyond itself. The square, a symbol of earth, steady, grounded, unshifting. The pyramid, the union of the two. Earth rising into sky, matter aspiring toward spirit. It is said that stone holds memory. Perhaps each angle remembers a prayer. Perhaps each block carries the breath of the builders, lifted in rhythm like an eternal chant. Scholars search for function, for hidden chambers, for treasure sealed away. But here in this stillness another truth emerges, that the pyramid was never meant to be read as a tomb, but as scripture. A text without ink, written not upon papyrus but upon silence. Its message not one of endings but of thresholds. Whispers tell us that the priests believed in a bridge, not of stone but of breath. When the final moment of life arrived, the last exhalation carried the soul upward. The body remained with the earth, but the breath, invisible, weightless, eternal, drifted toward the stars, and the pyramid, they believed, gave direction to that breath. A cosmic funnel, a sacred compass, a way to send the soul beyond the clouds, beyond the blackness, into the burning constellations that waited. Here, breath was not an ending. It was a return, a merging of mortal life with infinite starlight. Some believed Orion was the place of kings, and Sirius the home of gods. Perhaps the pyramid was their bridge, guiding the last sigh of humanity into the eternal rhythm of the heavens. Stand at its base and the stones tower, heavy with centuries. Step back and it seems to shrink, dwarfed by the endlessness of sky. Yet in that tension, between the weight of stone and the weightlessness of stars, lies its mystery. It does not belong fully to earth. It does not belong fully to heaven. It is caught between fires, an in-between place, a liminal threshold where time itself feels thinner. Some have said the pyramid is a shadow of the constellations. Others claim it is the constellations that are a shadow of the pyramid. In either case, the dialogue remains. Stone answering to star, star echoing back to stone. Listen, not to words but to what lingers in absence. The pyramid speaks not with sound, but with its refusal to speak. Its chambers are hollow, its passages empty. But emptiness, too, is a kind of presence. Within that silence, one begins to feel the weight of all that cannot be said. Perhaps the priests knew. Perhaps they understood that what is sacred cannot be spoken, only hinted at. A gesture of stone, a line of sight, an alignment of stars. The silence is not void. It is scripture. It is prayer. It is the still breath of eternity, waiting to be felt, not deciphered. And so, beneath the midnight sky, the pyramid rises still, edges cutting constellations. Its body both earthbound and starborn, it stands as a gate between worlds, a reminder that humanity has always looked upward, searching for its reflection in the heavens. That stone can be more than matter. That silence can be more than absence. That perhaps every monument is also a mirror, and every prayer a stairway. It is said that every star is a voice and every stone a memory. Perhaps the pyramid is where those two voices meet, not a tomb, not a monument, but a gate, a threshold where breath becomes starlight, and if one stands long enough in its shadow, listening with the heart rather than the ear, one might feel it still, the silent prayer of stone reaching upward, the soft pull of stars reaching down, a bridge, a gate, a silence alive with meaning. Perhaps it was never meant to be fully understood. Perhaps it was only meant to remind us that earth and sky were never separate at all. It begins with wind. A low hush across the desert, a breath moving softly, endlessly over stone and sand. The air lifts grains of dust, countless, weightless, wandering like tiny spirits across the earth. They rise, they fall, they settle. And in their settling, they veil what time has already begun to erase. The names of those who once walked here. Beneath the hush, the pyramid stands. Silent, immovable, enduring. Its edges still cut the horizon with unwavering sharpness, even as the centuries wash around it like a tide. But the ones who shaped its stones, their names have dissolved. Their stories lie buried, scattered like ash, forgotten by the world that once depended on their breath. It is said that dust remembers, that each grain carries a memory, though too faint for us to read. And so when the wind stirs the desert, one might imagine it is not emptiness that drifts across the land, but whispers, syllables half-remembered, fragments of a language that no ear remains to understand. Whispers tell us that names are fragile. A name must be spoken to live. A name must be remembered to endure. But here in the desert, silence stretches too long. The syllables of the builders, men and women who carried stone, who sang to pass the burden of labor, who breathed their last within the shadow of the rising monument, have fallen from memory. There are no songs to call them back, no scrolls to list them, no voice that can restore their presence. Only dust remains, dust that covers the empty places where their names should be, dust that drifts like a shroud across the forgotten, folding them into silence. And yet there is something holy in this forgetting, something sacred in the erasure, as though the desert in its patience has chosen to guard them, to cover their names not in cruelty, but in secrecy. While the names are gone, the pyramid remains. Each block, each angle, each chamber, still whole, still unmoved. It does not falter. It does not bow to the centuries. But what does it remember? Does stone recall the hands that touched it? Does it know the sweat, the voices, the laughter, the grief that pressed against its surface? The paradox is clear. The monument endures, yet those who gave it breath do not. The pyramid towers, yet it stands mute. It carries the weight of memory, yet speaks no names. It is as if the structure itself was built to erase its makers, to shine so bright, so eternal, that all who labored for it would fade into shadow. A monument not only to eternity, but to anonymity. Some believe the names still exist, not carved in stone, not written in ink, but carried by dust itself. Every handful of sand that the wind moves, every veil of earth that passes across the desert, may be heavy with forgotten syllables. The hieroglyphs crumble. The walls of temples crack, but the dust remains, moving endlessly, circling the earth, carrying fragments of the past like pollen. Perhaps when we breathe, we take in more than air. Perhaps in each inhalation, we gather a trace of someone else's story, someone else's name, unseen but present. In this way, the forgotten are not wholly lost. They drift within us, silent companions in our very breath. And yet there is melancholy in this thought. For these names cannot be summoned. They cannot be restored. They live only as echoes, faint enough to slip between consciousness and dream. Beneath the silence, the truth hums. Empires rise and empires vanish. Stone may last, but flesh dissolves. Rulers who believed themselves eternal are shadows now. their names surviving only where scribes scratched them into stone. But those countless others, the ones whose lives raised walls, who carried water, who carved the smallest of symbol, they vanish into silence. Even their families may have forgotten. Even their gods may no longer speak their names. The pyramid remains as paradox, eternal yet voiceless, unyielding yet mute. It survives to remind us not of the glory of empire, but of its erasure, for in its silence we feel the weight of all that is missing. An empire without voices, a monument without names, and still beneath this sorrow there is peace. Perhaps not all things are meant to be remembered. Perhaps forgetting is also sacred. There is freedom in being erased, freedom in being returned to dust. The builders, faceless to us now, are not bound by history's judgment. They belong to the silence, a silence so complete it becomes holy. Some truths may never return because they were never meant to. Some stories may never resurface because their place is not in memory but in mystery. The desert holds its secrets gently. The dust covers the forgotten softly. It is not violence but rest, not absence but stillness. And so the wind moves on. It lifts, it circles, it settles again, spreading its veil across the stones and across the centuries. The pyramid remains sharp against the horizon, watching but never speaking. The names remain hidden, scattered into dust, drifting where no hand can gather them. Perhaps one day they will rise again. Perhaps one night, in the half-light between waking and dream, we will hear them like chants carried on desert air. But perhaps not. Perhaps they were never meant to return, for in the end dust is gentle. It covers, it softens, it silences. It reminds us that all things pass and that passing too is sacred. The wind hushes once more. The desert is still, and the dust settles again, covering forgotten names in its quiet embrace, a veil, a shroud, a silence that comforts as sleep begins to take us. The desert is still. The air trembles with heat, though no wind stirs the horizon. Above the sky is a great expanse of pale fire, empty, relentless, unbroken. And beneath it, sharp and unmoving, the pyramid rises. Its edges cut against the light with such clarity that the eye almost doubts what it sees. At noon, when the sun hangs directly overhead, the desert seems to lose its depth. Every dune flattens into brightness. Every stone gleams without relief. Yet in this hour, in this brightest of hours, the pyramid offers its secret. It casts a shadow, narrow and deliberate, too precise to be ordinary, too exact to be the play of chance. It is said that the ancients watched this shadow closely, as though it were an oracle. Some believed it to be a clock, measuring the hours not with sound or movement, but with silence stretching across the earth. Others whispered that the shadow was a ritual in itself, a dark river flowing daily across the limestone, uniting sky and soil in one solemn gesture. Whispers tell us that the ancients did not separate stone from star or earth from sky. To them, each block of granite, each angle of architecture, was also a prayer. So when the pyramid's shadow fell across the ground, it was not merely geometry. It was language. It was a sentence written by the sun, spoken in silence upon the earth. Some say the priests waited for the moment when shadow met chamber, when light entered the heart of stone and vanished. Others believed the length of the darkness foretold seasons, the flooding of the Nile, the rising of Sirius, the coming of rituals that bound human breath to celestial rhythm. But perhaps the shadow was never meant to be deciphered. Perhaps it was itself the message. Not an answer to a question, but the question itself, eternal, unspoken, cast anew with each turning of the day. Watch as the sun drifts, slowly, patiently, as if time itself were moving on a scale too vast to comprehend. The shadow lengthens. It sharpens, then blurs. It rises upon the stone and dissolves again. It is like a river, though no water flows here, a dark current crossing the desert floor, marking paths that only the sky understands. Some may have seen it as a guide, directing the soul in its passage beyond life. Others may have felt it as a reminder that nothing is fixed, not even stone, not even the light that reveals it. For the shadow is never still. It moves as the sun moves. It lengthens, it withdraws, it hides, it returns. Like memory, it is always present, yet never quite held. Like breath, it is both here and gone in the same instant. It is said that shadows are not absence, but presence unrecognized. The silent half of light, the part of radiance that cannot be seen until it meets stone. Without shadow, light would be blinding. Without shadow, time would have no measure. The ancients may have known this, that the pyramid, rising in its perfection, was only half its own mystery. The other half lived in the darkness it created, a structure of silence, drawn not in granite, but in the moving shade upon the sand. Whispers tell us that even the gods had their shadows, forms that walked beside them unseen. To know only the brightness of a deity was not enough. To understand, one must also witness the hidden outline, the darker twin. So too with the pyramid. It is not only the stone we must behold, but the shadow it casts. Only then is the image whole. Only then does the structure speak. Consider how shadow lingers in memory. When we recall the past, we do not see it in full sunlight. We see it dimly, half-lit, with edges softened by time. Memories are shadows, imprints of what once was, stretched across the mind's horizon. The pyramid's shadow at noon is more than a trick of light. It is the shape of time itself. It is memory, drawn in darkness across the earth. It reminds us that the past is not gone, but refracted, always present but unreachable, always near, but untouchable. Perhaps the ancients stood in that shadow to feel themselves joined with those who came before. Perhaps they believed each passing day wrote their names into the moving line of shade, binding them, however briefly, to eternity. And now, centuries later, we too can stand at the edge of that shadow. We too can feel its cool silence crossing our skin, a reminder that memory does not vanish, it only changes form. As the sun continues its drift, the pyramid's shadow fades. It shortens, disappears, returns. Every day it performs this ritual. Every day it enacts the dance of what is fleeting and what endures. The stone remains unmoved, the shadow changes, unceasing. Together they are a paradox, one eternal, the other ephemeral, yet neither complete without the other. It is said that in this paradox lies the secret of life itself, that we too are part stone and part shadow, flesh enduring for a moment, spirit cast across time. That our lives, like the shifting outline at noon, are both fragile and eternal, present and vanishing in the same breath, and so the pyramid stands at noon. Its shadow sharpens, then softens. It lengthens, then disappears into the earth. Every day the cycle repeats. Every day the mystery returns. Perhaps the shadow was never meant as a tool. Perhaps it was never a clock, never a prophecy, never a measure of seasons. Perhaps it was always only itself, a dark presence moving across light, reminding all who watched that mystery is not solved, only lived, for what hides in shadow is not absence. It is another kind of presence, one we are not meant to fully see, one we can only sense at the edges, in the coolness of its passing, in the silence it leaves behind. The sun drifts, the light changes, the shadow fades, and still the pyramid remains, a witness to both radiance and darkness, to both memory and forgetting, and as night begins to gather, we are left with a quiet thought, that shadows, like memories, never truly vanish. They only wait and veiled, patient, lingering, for the moment we are ready to see them again. The desert hushes, the stone rests, and the shadow, unseen now, drifts softly into silence. It begins with a hush, not the hush of ordinary quiet, but the deep stillness of a desert afternoon, where the air itself seems suspended, holding its breath. Against this stillness stands a wall of stone, and within that wall a door that has never opened to us. A door sealed so long ago that the hand which pressed it shut has turned to dust, its fingerprints lost, its memory dissolved into the sands. It is said the ancients shaped their thresholds with care, for they believed a door was not a barrier, but a passage, the line where one world ends and another begins. This one, chiseled from blocks that bear the weight of centuries, has not yielded to storm nor to stranger. It remains as it has always been, closed, silent, waiting. Some whispers call it a vault, a place where gold and sacred treasures sleep in darkness. Others imagine papyrus scrolls, rolled and stored in careful rows, holding the wisdom of a vanished world. But there are those who suggest something different, something quieter, that behind this door lies nothing at all. No crown, no scripture, no relic, only emptiness. A silence so complete it becomes its own revelation. Picture it now. The threshold marked by shadows at dawn, kissed by the burning sun at noon, and softened by the silver wash of moonlight by night. For millennia it has kept its vigil unmoved. Its edges are worn yet still whole. The seals, though brittle with age, whisper a warning. Not yet. Not yet. It is said the priests once approached it with reverence, carrying torches whose flames bent in the windless air. They did not touch it. They only sang before it, their voices rising like incense, vanishing into the cracks of the stone. To them, the sealed door was not an obstacle but a mirror. In its silence they heard themselves, for in forgotten corners of the earth silence is not emptiness, it is presence, unseen. The ancients knew this. The sealed door was not meant to be forced, but to be contemplated. A meditation in stone. Beneath the silence we feel the weight of questions. Was it meant to guard a king, a god, a secret too vast for human eyes? Or is the true treasure the door itself, its refusal to yield, its persistence across time? Archaeologists, with their brushes and chisels, have stood before such thresholds, their hearts caught between wonder and restraint. To open a sealed door is to disturb not only the dust of centuries, but the dream it carries. For once revealed, mystery can never return to silence. It is said that long ago, when a similar chamber was opened, the air inside was the first breath of 4,000 years. Those present felt the weight of eternity rush past their faces. Some swore they heard a sigh. Others said the silence was louder than thunder. What then might this door conceal? A chamber of echoes? A hall of forgotten kings? Or perhaps only the darkness, patient, absolute, eternal. And yet in that possibility there is a strange kind of comfort. For emptiness is not absence. It is space. Space for wonder. Space for the imagination to wander where footsteps may never go. The sealed door becomes more than stone. It becomes a symbol. For who among us does not carry doors within, thresholds never crossed, questions never answered, mysteries never touched? We all walk through life with sealed places in our memory, our longing, our grief. Some believe the ancients designed these thresholds not to be opened, but to teach us the art of patience, to remind us that not every silence must be broken, not every secret spoken. A sealed door is a lesson in humility, that the unknown is not always meant to be known. It is marked by the moon, by the drifting constellations that have passed above it. One after another, thousands upon thousands of nights. Still it waits. Still it holds. Whispers tell us that kings themselves once stood here gazing at the sealed threshold, knowing that beyond it lay a path they too must one day walk. To them the stone was not prison but passage. Not an end but a beginning. Close your eyes and listen. Imagine the silence behind that door. No sound of the living, no footstep, no voice. Only the hush of dust settling through centuries, the soft weight of time pressing down. Perhaps even the faint echo of prayers whispered long ago, still suspended in the air, waiting to be heard. It is a silence that teaches. It teaches that not all answers are for us, that some mysteries guard themselves not out of cruelty, but out of compassion, for we are not yet ready. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. Perhaps the sealed door is a reminder that reverence is greater than possession, that wonder is greater than certainty, and so we leave it, unbroken, eternal. The massive stone door remains sealed as it has always been, as it may always be. Its silence is its gift, its refusal to yield a kind of grace. In that silence there is no disappointment, only stillness. In that stillness there is no absence, only presence hidden and whole. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Perhaps one day the door will open, or perhaps it will stand forever, guarding nothing but the mystery itself. Until then, it remains what it has always been, a threshold between the known and the unknown, between breath and eternity, between the questions we carry and the silence that carries us. Beneath the silence, beneath the stone, there is a truth that does not need to be spoken, a truth that waits, a truth that simply is. And as the desert night falls once more, the stars bending above, the sealed door is bathed again in shadows, still untouched, still unbroken, still sacred. And so we drift with it into the quiet. It begins with the horizon, a vast unbroken line of desert stretching outward, where sand meets sky in a silence older than memory. And above that line, in the ocean of night, one star lingers. Not the brightest, not the grandest, yet it remains. While others fall beneath the earth, dipping into the hidden realms of darkness, this one holds its vigil, imperishable, patient, eternal, the star that never sets. It is said the ancients knew it well. They raised their eyes toward it on nights when silence pressed heavy upon the stones, when the air itself seemed to tremble with expectation. This star, constant, unyielding, became the axis around which their prayers turned. Not the fire of passing brilliance, but the assurance of presence. A light that would not abandon them. And in the desert, where the sands shift, where winds erase the marks of time, constancy was the most sacred gift of all. Picture the pyramid beneath that star, its edges rising in solemn grace, its form cutting into the velvet sky like a frozen flame. The stone seems less like stone, more like a mirror tilted upward, reflecting not the earth but the heavens. It is said that when the pyramid was complete, its builders stood in silence at nightfall, watching the way its angles caught the sky, how its summit pointed not merely upward, but toward eternity. They believed the structure was not only for the living, not only for the dead, but for the bridge between. Her gate written in limestone marked by the stars. Some whispers tell us that the chosen star, this star that never sets, was the guide of kings. It shone steady, not blazing with arrogance, but patient in its watch, as though promising that even after life itself dissolved, the soul would not wander. It would have a light to follow. Perhaps it was not stone they sought to shape, but alignment, a harmony between breath and cosmos, between heartbeat and constellation. For if the pyramid could echo the sky, then perhaps those who walked beneath it could echo eternity. In forgotten texts worn and faded, the ancients wrote of imperishable stars. They believed such lights were not mere fire, but thresholds, celestial gateways through which the soul would rise. Whispers tell us that the northern sky was sacred above all, for there lingered those lights that never sank. Stars that circled, yes, but never fell. Stars untouched by death's horizon. To fix a monument toward them was to fix life itself upon the eternal. Some believe the pyramid's corridors and chambers were designed as conduits, aligned with these stars. Narrow shafts carved through unyielding stone, aiming not at the earth but at the heavens. Imagine standing within those silent passageways, torchlight trembling, watching a pinpoint of starlight pierce the darkness through a narrow slit in the rock. The flame in your hand dances, but the star does not move. The contrast is a lesson. All that flickers is fleeting. What does not flicker is sacred. It is said the king himself would one day journey along that light. His soul, no longer bound by body, would follow the steady star through a sky that did not change. Their passage not downward, not into dust, but upward, into infinity. Was the pyramid then a tomb, or was it something else? Perhaps a ladder etched in stone, an echo of constellations, a prayer written across both sand and sky. The star that never sets is more than astronomy. It is a mirror of the human longing for permanence. In a world where all drifts, sand, empire, name, and breath, there is something within us that yearns for what endures. The ancients felt this too. They saw kingdoms rise and crumble, families vanish into silence, rivers shift their beds and carve new courses through the desert. But above it all, there were stars that did not leave. In their steadiness, people saw something divine, something worth orienting stone, ceremony, and spirit toward. Perhaps that is why the pyramid itself endures. It was shaped not to mirror the shifting earth, but to echo the steadfast heavens. The geometry is not only physical, it is spiritual, a mapping of human hope onto the infinite, and we too know this longing. For who does not seek a light that never fades, a memory that will not dissolve, a truth that does not slip through the fingers like sand? The ancients found theirs in the northern sky. We find ours in different ways, but the yearning is the same. Close your eyes. Picture the desert night, the pyramid dark and unmoving, the sands whispering in low sighs across the ground, and above that one star, unwavering, patient, present. It is not the brilliance that calls you, it is the constancy. The comfort of knowing it will be there tomorrow and the next night and the night after. That while all else drifts, some lights remain. Perhaps the pyramid was never meant to hold bodies at all. Perhaps it was a prayer given shape, a vast unmoving syllable of stone, reciting again and again a line. Align breath with sky, align heart with eternity, align life with what does not end. It is said that those who walked beneath its shadow felt small yet not diminished. To be small before eternity was not despair but belonging. The pyramid pointed upward, the star gazed downward, and in between stood humanity, brief, fragile, but tethered to the infinite. And now the night deepens. The desert cools, the winds hush, and the pyramid stands still, its silhouette drinking the light of the eternal star. We are left with wonder, not answers. Was the star truly a guide for the dead, a gateway for kings? Or was it simply a fixed point in the heavens, adopted by human longing? The question drifts unanswered, and perhaps it was never meant to be answered. For the beauty lies not in certainty, but in mystery, in knowing that above us, beyond us, there is something steady, something that does not fall. The pyramid becomes less monument, more prayer, less tomb, more echo, less stone, more silence, and the star remains imperishable, constant. It lingers as others fade, holding its place at the axis of the sky. A reminder, gentle as breath, that while all else dissolves into dust, some stars never set, and in that thought we rest. It begins with a question, not one spoken aloud, but whispered across centuries, lingering like a sigh in the desert wind. What if the pyramid is not a tomb, but a dream? A dream not of a single king, nor of a single lifetime, but of a people, of a civilization, of an age that sought to leave behind something greater than memory. A dream so vast that stone was chosen as its vessel, and yet so delicate that its true meaning survives only in silence. Imagine standing at its base. The night has fallen. The desert is hushed. Above, the stars drift in slow procession, endless and unhurried. The pyramid rises not as ruin, not as relic, but as something breathing. A mountain shaped by human hands, yet echoing the language of the cosmos. Each edge catches faint light, each surface whispering of purpose. It is not stillness you feel, but waiting, as though the stone itself holds an unspoken thought, suspended, incomplete. This is the invitation, to enter not merely the structure, but the dream it shelters. It is said that civilizations dream as we do. Their temples, their myths, their stories carved into walls are the echoes of that dreaming. But unlike our fleeting night visions, these dreams sought permanence. They took shape in stone, in alignment with stars, in rituals so vast they spanned generations. Whispers tell us that the pyramid was not designed to contain death, but to cradle a vision. That every chamber is a fragment of thought, every corridor a fragment of prayer, each block of limestone a syllable in a language beyond words. And though centuries have passed, though winds have swept names away and empires have dissolved into sand, the dream remains. Not fully awake, not fully forgotten, but buried, waiting. Some believe the pyramid is geometry, others memory. Still others call it scripture written without ink, a hymn too large to be sung. Yet beneath all these interpretations is a quieter truth. The pyramid feels alive. Step closer and its silence grows louder. Walk the perimeter, and you sense pulse in its symmetry. Look upward, and its summit cuts into the heavens like the point of a pen, as though writing across the sky itself. Imagine the builders, thousands of lives braided into one vast endeavor. Their hands roughened, their breath steady, their eyes raised not to the stone they lifted, but to the horizon of eternity. Did they know what they shaped? Did they sense that they were not merely stacking stone, but breathing life into a dream? It is said their work was less labor than ritual. Every placement of stone was a vow, every gesture a recitation, as if each one carried within them a fragment of the vision, incomplete on its own, but together forming the vastness that still rises from the sand. Scholars search for logic, for measurements, for plans, for hidden chambers. And yes, these things may exist. Yet the mystery resists explanation. For a dream cannot be measured by rulers, nor can it be fully charted. Its essence lies not in what it reveals, but in what it refuses to say. Perhaps that is why the pyramid feels so alive. Its passageways like veins running deep into silence, its hidden chambers like lungs breathing in the darkness. Its weight pressing downward, but its form reaching upward, as though it sleeps in two worlds at once, earth and sky, body and spirit. Some myths describe the pyramid as a giant slumbering beneath the stars. Its breath is the desert wind. Its heartbeat is the slow movement of shadow across its sides. Its dream is what we walk upon, what we look upon, what we cannot ever fully awaken. And if the pyramid itself is dreaming, then perhaps we are caught inside it. Perhaps our fascination, our endless return to its mysteries is part of the dream's unfolding. It is less an object we observe, and more a vision that continues to include us, long after its builders vanished into dust. Dreams are fragile, fleeting things. By morning, most dissolve, but some leave traces, a feeling, a symbol, a single image that lingers, refusing to fade. The pyramid feels like such a trace, the remnant of a dream not fully lost, not fully remembered. Its scale is too great, its endurance too precise to be mere accident. Instead, it carries the weight of something larger than any one person, larger even than the age that built it. Civilizations, like people, dream of eternity. They dream of being remembered, of surpassing the limits of flesh and time. The pyramid is this dream made solid, its permanence an answer to the fragility of human breath. And yet even stone cannot reveal the full dream. Only fragments remain, veiled, waiting. It is said that within the pyramid lies not treasure but silence, not answers but questions. Its sealed doors and empty corridors remind us that perhaps the dream is unfinished, waiting for us to continue it. That the stone is not a conclusion but a beginning. Close your eyes. Picture the pyramid beneath the stars. The air is still. The sands stretch outward, endless and pale. And there, rising before you, is a vision both immovable and alive. The longer you gaze, the less it feels like stone. Its presence shifts. It becomes a mirror not of your reflection, but of your silence. The dream within it is not only its own, it reaches into you, reminding you that you too are a vessel of dreams. Perhaps that is the hidden truth, that we are part of the same dream, that the pyramid's vision is not finished because it is waiting for us, for our eyes to meet it, for our breath to mingle with the ancient breath within its chambers. The dream continues each time we remember it, each time we wonder. It is said that some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. The pyramid silence is such a voice. The dream it carries does not speak in words but in presence. And in that presence something within us stirs, something half forgotten, half eternal. The night deepens. The sands grow cold. The pyramid darkens, its sharp edges blending with the sky until it feels less like stone, more like shadow. The star-marked heavens drift slowly above it, patient and infinite. The dream rests, still unfinished. Its silence does not frustrate. It soothes. For not all dreams are meant to be solved. Some are meant to be lived within, to be breathed slowly, to accompany us into the quiet hours. Perhaps the pyramid's greatest secret is not what lies within its walls, but what it awakens in us. The sense that we, too, are part of a vision stretching beyond life and death, beyond sand and star. A dream of continuity, of belonging, of mystery without end, and so we leave it as it stands, vast, silent, alive. A dream carved into stone, still sleeping beneath the stars. Perhaps one day it will wake, or perhaps it is not meant to. Perhaps its purpose is to remain suspended, unfinished, eternal, a dream waiting for those willing to step into its silence. And in that silence, we rest.